Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is a CEOs in Sport webinar. I'm privileged to be your speaker in the topic Leading with Technology, Practical Steps for Modern Leadership. I guess if you really know me, this is quite an unlikely topic for me to discuss. However, I am now studying again, and that includes artificial intelligence. And then, of course, I've been a sports leader for a very long time. Just a little bit about our organization, CEO Sports. If you're not a member yet, it's a professional network of leaders across the sports industry. We've been going since 2019. Very proud of what we've achieved so far. It's a platform for strategic dialogue, collaboration, and knowledge sharing. Definitely networking is important for us. And it does focus on various topics, including leadership, governance, innovation, sustainability, and crisis management in sport, but not even limited to that. We host seminars, we have panel discussions, we have networking events, also networking breakfasts. And it connects sports with business, law, agents, schools, everybody in the ecosystem that wants to benefit from the organization. And then members also receive significant discounts on events, free access to virtual sessions, and complimentary invitations to the annual industry networking function. So if you're a student, you get a bit of discount. As you can see, the memberships are very, very affordable. Brings me to our topic today. So technology, I guess AI is something that's well known as a topic to people. But it is actually quite an interesting concept if you're a business leader or you're a leader within sport. Let's grab some water here. And just looking at technology and the world. So the world's forever evolving. It goes through the industrial revolutions, and technology and progress has been around forever, and as long as mankind has been around. It's very, very interesting, and I heard this when I was at a seminar in Cambridge, and they said that somebody will always benefit first from technology and somebody will benefit last. So there must have been somebody that, or organization that used computers first, and there must have been somebody that then would benefit from it last. And one needs to decide, where do you want to be on this? I guess we always sit down and we think what gives us the competitive edge. And that is important in terms of a leadership mindset. So if the tone is from the top, if the leadership embraces technology, if leadership embraces the use of technology, that sets the tone all the way down. It's also interesting when there's new technological developments. When cars was just invented, that was the thing, isn't it now? A car back in the day, and there's this great example where people actually run next to a car and outrun it, outsprint it. So when cars was just developed, you can imagine this dusty road, the guy sitting in this vintage car, putting probably on his goggles for all the dusts. So at the time, there were people that was joking with cars. So they would stand next to the car and then outsprint the car. They would run quicker than the car. And there was a thinking that this is a passing phase. The current technology in cars is of such that you can actually run quicker. So if you were to go from point A to point B, it was quicker to run than to drive a car. The thing about this is technology evolves all the time, and this is a great technology. You would not now stand next to a car and try and run. You would also now not argue that getting from point A to point B, the better way of doing it is a car, not a horse, or any other mode of transport that was used back in the day. A very interesting fact is there was a protest by math teachers against the use of calculators. They said this is as evil as one can get, that our youth should use calculators, and that was the most evil thing. There was actually such a protest with the math teachers going and having a protest. It's also difficult sometimes for business leaders, and I'm one to put up my hand, to implement something that you don't even understand. How do you embrace a form of technology that you don't understand? It's not that easy. It's also implementing a concept that scares you. You hear all these big things about evil. It's going to replace jobs. So that doesn't make it all that palatable for somebody to really look at technology and says, I want to embrace it. This is what I'm going to do. Just reversing it a little bit is my advice to anybody that's in a leadership position, is to think of the cars and the person running. You got to embrace technology. Technology will always be used for both good and bad, but that gives us no reason not to use technology. As computers, you cannot think of a business now that doesn't have a computer, doesn't have a phone. The same will happen with technology. I'm definitely not an AI expert. I'm also studying this as well. And I'm not one that looks at definitions per se, but I do think that one does benefit from just the basic understanding of this all. And I try to make this as simple as possible. So artificial intelligence is the capability of a machine to imitate intelligent human behavior by perceiving its environment, processing information and learning from the experience, and tracking or taking actions that maximize the likelihood of achieving a specific goal. Similar to what a computer would do, but this is slightly different. Maybe the next introduction explains it a bit better. So AI entails the development and the use of computer systems that can simulate human intelligence by learning from data, recognizing patterns, reasoning, and making decisions or predictions with minimal human intervention. That is probably a good description of it. That's computers, it's system, it mimics AI, human intelligence, probably a good summary of this all. I don't want to get into a technical debate about what AI is and what it is, but maybe just basic understanding. So it mimics human intelligence or intelligent human tasks. Machine learning, it learns patterns from data and large language models. It's the LLM, understands and generates language. Then predictive AI is forecast future outcomes, and decision support AI assists human in decision making. So that is what it is in a nutshell. Even I, that does not operate in this world, understands that. And I do think it is important that we just look at that. You will not fear what you understand. And so unknown and unloved. And I almost encourage people to, what I do now is I would listen every morning to a 10-minute or 15-minute video, which I just get on Google, I guess. And I ask Google to just do a video on certain things. I'm again studying, and my LLD includes the use of AI. It really does stretch. That is why we study, and this is how we develop. But as a start, I think you do need a basic support of that. Then in sport, we've had AI actually longer than one thinks. Performance data, player tracking, biomechanics, that is as known to us as a current best practice. Medical and injury data, tactical patterns and opposition analysis, that's already being used. Fan engagement and commercial data, that is something that we already do. Then, of course, governance, integrity, and compliance risk. Integrity is a very interesting one because you must use AI to protect the integrity of sport. Again, compliance risk, it just makes it easier for us. It's more powerful. It is already integrated in our sport systems. In coaching, definitely analyzing opposition strategies, track real-time performance metrics, and then personalized training programs. It's already there. I think AI in sport will just develop more and more. The very nature of sport, and I'm a CEO in cricket. It's just lost the final in Cape Town. I can tell you, and my fellow sports professionals will tell you, we will do anything to get a competitive edge, and AI has played a big role in it, and we've been using it for a while. Officiating is a very good one, so VAR is a good one. The third referee in rugby, or the TV referee in rugby, and of course in cricket, where it's used a lot, where you have the TV referee. It enhances officiating. It does. We cannot even think of it. Stadium maintenance, use of AI for stadium maintenance, these new programs that's coming out, something that one can really encourage to have a look at. Now, implementing AI in business or in sports business is probably something that we now have to think about. You've got to think if you're a business leader or you're in a position where you want to do it. I think as a start, and it's not that I do everything perfect or that my organization is perfect, but as a start, I think you've got to embrace it. You've got to come and say, guys, what's out there? You've got to at least understand the basic concept. You can benchmark best practices around, talk, consult with industry pace setters in implementing AI. I think that if you do those first 3 steps, you're already on the right approach. So just understand the basic concept, even if you do a bit of training in it or get consulting in it. Benchmark best practices. I can tell you it doesn't matter what you do, there's somebody that's already using AI more effectively, and consult with industry pace setters speaks to my point that I've just made. That's implemented AI. That can also be not just related to your industry, but also cross industry. See how they do it, let them explain it to you. And this is very important. You've got to be open-minded approach to it. You cannot look at why it will not work. That is just not right. Be careful not to engage in opportunistic selling. This is what happens with us. Sometimes we think we embrace it now, so we've got to buy something, a lot of things on the market. Just a few questions, and the last 2 relates to that. That's what we always try and do. Does it make it better? Does it make us better? Will this make us better? Some of the things is got a lot of is wonderful. It's got a lot of bells and whistles, but will it make us better? Some of the things are straightforward, easy. You look at it and it will make you better. Then the cost-benefit ratio. If it's a really nice system, but it is very costly, then it's something that one needs to look at as well. The cost-benefit ratio. We'd like to have this. This is a lot of money. There is a law in technology that it gets cheaper and better. I'm not sure if that's always true in the modern days, but it is true that the cost-benefit ratio will always play a role. People come in and they show you this wonderful thing, and you just got to look at in your world, does it make it? I've got a financial manager that really looks at the rands and the cents. He's got this wonderful saying: if we implement this, does it move the needle? Do we just spend more money and it doesn't make it better? Sometimes one needs to invest in non-tangible things like fan experience. You also got to invest in things such as fan safety. So certain things will make us better. All right, but there is a cost-benefit ratio. I know the big debate was always if we have free Wi-Fi in the stadium, more people would come. It's almost come and gone. I know initially there was a huge cost to it, and people said that you will sell out. I'm not always sure at the time. It would have been a great buy, and now there is a bit of it in the stadium anyway. It's more affordable to us as well. So that is the thing about technology. So if we look at a bit of guidelines and just legal frameworks, and I come across this within my studies, UNESCO guidelines for the use of AI systems in courts and tribunals. There will always be disputes. This also relates to my study, so it is quite important to me. So it came up with 15 guidelines that one needs to look at, and this is quite telling for me because I think this can be used generally. So the first one is protection of human rights. When you look at AI and technology and you implement it, does this protect human rights? This is a very nice safety net. Proportionality, feasibility of benefits. It's something that I just spoke to. Safety, information security. That's the other problem that when I have spoke to one of my best friends that's a big shot in insurance. So he said, whenever we visited a broker, and the broker said, this AI is wonderful. So if somebody sends him a quote, and a comparative quote, and remember, this has got the client's detail and personal detail on it. He puts it in ChatGPT, and that analyzes it for him. Remember, that stays in ChatGPT as well. You're actually sharing this information. So that, of course, is a big concern. So one needs to be careful with that information security, accuracy, and reliability. I myself saw it. I'll talk about law a little bit later, but I've seen it make mistakes. So that's, but you've got to realize it's not always reliable. One needs to check it. On that point, it'll just get better and better and better. That you're going to realize, like the Oaks were out sprinting a car, AI is just got to get better. Explainability, for me, that is a great one. Auditability, can you see if this really works? Transparent and open justice, awareness, and information use. In the bottom column is something that you got to look at as well. Responsibility, accountability, and contestability. One needs to realize that the AI cannot be a fait accompli. That cannot be the last way around it. Have a look at it. And then, of course, participatory design, multi-stakeholder governance, and collaboration. Now, for me, if I look at UNESCO, this is great guidelines for what I call it, responsible use of AI and technology. This refers just to AI. So one needs to, as a leader that needs to look at AI, look at this 15. And for me, it does cover a lot. 15 aspects is a lot. Then just AI in the law. You need to understand that the law always catches up with technology. So technology happens first, and then the law comes in. So back in the day, you can imagine that you had to sign a contract physically, and you have to have a original copy if you ever contest this in court. So for law to catch up with it, there was a new legislation that says, now look, you can agree online to it, that the law will acknowledge that as a contract as well. So the technology always happens first, and the law catches up. Of course, that can lead to quite a vulnerable period of time where there is no law that actually regulates all of this. The other problem you have with AI, it seems to be fast moving. So how do you regulate something that's a moving target? How do you regulate things that's forever coming? However, one would realize that there is always I think, a focus to protect public interest and the public to this. But the point I'm trying to make is law will always catch up technology. It's not that we bring out a law and then we develop the technology. In my mind, there's always guidance from either Europe or USA. There's always, even the POPI Act, you would see that would have been in Europe first. And we adopted quite, there's not a lot of differences between the two. I was blessed to do a study through a UK university and things like the Copyright and Design Act. We do Africanize it a little bit, but the guidance usually comes from it. That's true. I can tell you now that the AI regulations are a little bit ahead in Europe compared to South Africa. So if you want to have a look at where it's going and where it's regulated, you can already look at Europe if you like. Just in our legislation is we don't have a single big dedicated AI Act at this stage. I think it will come. There's already a draft in place, or draft guidelines, but yeah, there's no AI Act at this stage. It will come, but there's nothing now. But you still have historic protections in for the public. So we talk about data protection, consumer equality, cyber security. That's in place. Communications, surveillance laws, and it's definitely there's emerging policy frameworks. All right, in Europe there's already AI governance, and it's anchored by the UAI, the European AI Act. Apologies, plus a wider digital rulebook. Like I said, probably ahead of us. First thing that you got to be known that you got to know is the POPI Act. It's a fairly new act, about 13 years old. So that is protection related to personal data. So that is the first one. The same with the Access to Information Act that will play a role in it. Electronic Communications Act. I actually used the example there to it as well, so that will regulate it now. The Cyber Crimes Act is quite a new act, about 6 years old, so that'll play a role. And then also Consumer Protection Act. So in the South African environment, that is where it is. Copyright and Design Act. Quite an old act, both of them. The next one as well. Like I say, the English has got it all in one. But the understanding to it, it protects original works such as literary, musical, artistic works. So that is the idea of it. And copyright arises automatically once a work is fixed in material form. No registration is needed. Same with the Design Act. But these things are quite important when we go on chatbots and we understand that where it is. There is also already a challenge to some of these chatbots in America that questions the design or the use of it. Traditional copyright assumes a human author, which raises the question where AI systems autonomously generate content. Right? Duration, if you didn't know this, but it is 50 years currently. AI-generated works, South African law currently does not explicitly provide AI as a status as an author. It's a very important point that you can look at. Works produced solely by AI might not qualify for protection because they lack human authorship. I'm not sure that will change in future, but that is what it is. However, the human exercise significant creative control, for example, by directing prompts or editing outputs, that human may be recognized as an author. What can go wrong? I can tell you in law it hallucinates. It creates cases that doesn't exist. We used it to do a sports law manual, and I'll give you just a good example. A lot of you will be familiar with the Trotsky and Van der Walt case, which then almost years on, there was another consideration with the Santos, Ingerson and Santos case, and it generates the facts quite correctly. The only thing is Trotsky was, of course, then Old Grey's chairperson, and it made it Santos chairperson, so it does. I've seen it myself. You can also ask it to draw, if you go to ChatGPT, draw a person with a pen in its left hand. It will draw a man with a pen in its right hand. So there's biased data, and one needs to understand it. That, of course, is a big concern. And then AI, like all technology, will be used for evil. Example is deep fakes, where Jan Rupert is telling you you've got to invest in things. It is a prediction that will lose jobs. I don't know, people now say that people using AI will replace people not using AI, but the way I see it and the way it's developed, that's also true for the Industrial Revolution. When you have machines coming in and replace people, that is definitely that. And of course, your biggest danger, to my mind, is that lack of human oversight, where it's out of our control. You know, it's machine driven. That's where it's gone. I must be honest. If you contest IP nowadays, and I mean, there is not. It's all online. That's literally what it does. People ask me would there be AI judges? Yeah. So in terms of intellectual property disputes, that's already an automated system. I can half understand that you either got registered or not. But you know, when does human oversight don't work in? When does it's in? To my mind, for now, there should also always be human oversight. Right? Leaders must protect human rights potentially influenced by AI. That makes a lot of sense. Use AI responsibly and transparently. It's the other thing that's important. Maintain athlete-centered values, balance innovation with ethics and governance, and accountability for all decisions. I myself sit and I think, how do we do it? So Bridget's my PA. I said to her, yeah, well, surely automated invites, that's going to work. We've also now bought Claude. So that's a wonderful thing. We have these meetings. Claude records it. It indicates to us what's action points. So that to us is very, very good. It is a mindset. It is an absolute mindset that leaders has got to do. Going back to my slide where I'm saying that you do need, firstly, to embrace it. Secondly, have an open mindset, but at least understand where you're going with it. That is it for me. I was hoping to do it in half an hour. I think I got quite close to it. Always want to start with where I am, or end where I started. Again, and just getting your mindset there. One fears technology because of the absolute unknown factor about it. One also would not embrace something that you don't fully understand. It could come across very complex. It could be that one looks at it and you go, right, I don't even understand it. What do you want me to embrace? And then one would also have arguments for not using it. I don't think people like going into the unknown. I don't think people would like to introduce new things. That's just human behavior. One can, however, take a lot of comfort from where we've come from. If you said to me that my auntie that's 69 will be on Facebook, I would not even believe that 15 or 20 years ago. So people seem to learn. She hasn't really progressed to any of the other platforms, but I'm hell of impressed that she is on Facebook. Myself, very active on Facebook as well. So we have a tendency to use it. And then I guess when one looks back, you would think that there was a time that people thought that TVs and the television was evil. I'm sure did the use of digital media. We know now about Australian legislation. There's both good and bad in it. The one thing I can tell you would not stop it. It's not going to stop. And to my point, somebody will benefit first and somebody will benefit last. So surely you want to embrace technology and benefit from it first. All the other points are still very relevant. It is difficult to implement a concept that you don't even understand. First step should always be to have a better understanding of it. You don't have to be a master. You don't have to be a programmer to understand it. And the same it is, I guess, with the use of emails and the same with the use of a computer. One doesn't have to program these functionalities. One just needs to understand how to use it. So I don't have to be able to code or write the functionality around the email. I just need to know how to send the email and to benefit from it. So for me, that is probably the most important to it. Cookie, that gives me, as I have it, about a half an hour. I'm happy to take questions. I struggle to see any hands, so if you can help me with it, I'm happy to take. We've got about 10-15 minutes. If there's any comments or questions, I also welcome comments on it. Like I say, definitely not an expert in the field. I've enrolled for LLD that title includes the use of AI for dispute resolutions. And as I start studying it, I was actually very scared, still a bit scared, but I did venture into how do one use AI. If you look closely at the photo, you can see I'm not a Gen Z or a Gen, I'm probably, I don't know what I even go, I'm probably Generation A by now. So it is not, it doesn't come naturally in terms of embracing it. When it comes to leadership, one has always got an obligation to take your organization somewhere. You need to almost say to yourself, when I started as a leader, this was the use of technology, and when I left, this is how we embraced technology. This is the progress we did. One cannot stuck in the past. We cannot say that a Kodak camera will not be replaced by a digital camera, or that a horse and carriage will not be replaced by a motor vehicle one day. In saying that, we still need to be responsible, and one should not argue that there is not a negative effect of technology. Humankind will find a way to use it for evil as well, but that is no excuse not to embrace it. AI is a powerful tool, and like I said, I was blessed to speak at a conference in Cambridge, and I actually asked them. I said, "You guys are clearly much smarter than most people in the world, definitely smarter than me. So you give me a silver bullet." And they said, "AI, you got to use AI." So that is for me significant. I came back I looked at our organization. I said, guys, we got to embrace this. We got to start on the top. You yourself embrace it. You go to your managers. That's where it comes from. You use it wherever you use it responsibly. One need to also understand that there's a cost involved. You need to budget for it. I serve on the university FinCom. I'm actually chairman, and I can tell you now that you will struggle to train engineers without buying AI licenses, and that can be as much as 9 million rand. So I said, why do we buy these licenses? And people explained to me it will not be possible to train engineers if you don't use AI, and if you use AI, you've got to pay a license. So it is a budget item that you've got to look at, and I'm sure CFOs and financial managers look at it, and they would say that we didn't need it in the past, why would we need it in future? So the practical application would definitely be start budgeting for it, because it will make it. Will make it better. I'm happy to take questions. I'm not an AI expert. I do leadership. I definitely do a little bit of law. So anything related to that and to implementing that. And even if you want to make a comment, happy to have a look at that as well. Yeah, Ivanka, I hope my speaker wasn't muted, because then I got to start all over again. But I'm happy to take any questions if there is any.
Thanks, Jock. You do have a question. We have 2 questions from Ariana. I'm going to read the first one.
Sure.
She asks, how can AI add value in our sporting industry? Is it apps that we need to purchase?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's probably where you got to start. I think that's going to be the attitude: is how do we benefit from it? In the AI, in the sporting industry, literally, when we looked at it, everything that can be automated. So invites, anything that is player or performance related, that we've seen already. I mean, your coaching aids, that's become AI now. So it can literally help on every level. I do think it goes further than just the app. I got to be honest. It is the application of it, but it's got to come from somewhere. So it's probably software as well. Remember what it is, and I'm going to use a good example with Claude. So I mean, we've been recording meetings. I mean, that's it. And if I just reverse it, so Bridget would record the meeting and then type. Now it goes further. Claude records it, it types it, and then it also indicates to us steps that needs to be taken. It gives a summary. That's where the AI intelligence comes from. So definitely in sport, I think there would be huge applications in the coaching, medical science field, definitely. So I think, like I say, I'm not an expert, but it's definitely more than just, I think, an app that you got to do. It's got to have a level of intelligence. And maybe a good example is, are you just recording a meeting and then type it, or is it able to type? Claude can go further. So it can translate it in any language. So Canal Plus, Blue, they can now look at a SuperSport meeting, and they can literally translate it in French. Now that human, that AI application to the human function, that is where it comes. And I hope that answers your question. I'm definitely not a AI specialist, but I do think it is a good question. Thanks. The next one.
Thanks, Jock. The next question is, what are some of the trends that we can look at in the next few years due to AI?
I must be honest, I'm going to give you a good example where it influences it. So stadiums are like a place to steal cars. And we've sadly had our fair share of it, So for some reason, if you've got guards there and they scan you in, scan you out, there somehow there's a car that goes missing. So we've looked at AI, and one of the things is access control. So a smart camera would take a photo of the driver and the license plate. So if it wants to leave, the boom doesn't open if it doesn't match. All right. So of course, if you've got a designated driver or somebody at the back it actually takes photos of everybody in the front. So that's what you're going to see. You're going to see it influence, and I think what you're going to have is, my example is, you're going to have smart stadiums. It's already there. It's definitely come. So smart stadiums is where it's going to influence. If you've managed facilities, already there's hotspots to indicate who's where at which gates. How do you move things around? It will influence the way we do events and host events at stadiums. That's definitely it will influence that. It will influence sporting on-field performance. It does. It's already got a big influence on officiating, isn't it? So you already got the third umpire and all of that. But I think the future development will be in terms of medical, in terms of proactive testing within the medical world. Definitely with that scanning of athletes coming in, it will definitely influence it going forward. It's difficult to predict it because I think it will influence every single level that sport operates in. In sports law, it will influence the way we deal with disputes. It's already, developing capabilities to influence mediation, negotiation, and arbitration. So even in disputes in sports, it will influence. My short answer is I don't think there is an area that will not be influenced. I read that, can AI motivate players? I don't know. I guess you still need somebody that will be able to do that, but I wouldn't put it past them as well. So yeah, thanks, Ivanka.
Obriel says, thanks for the presentation, Prof. Do you have any case studies of how sport organizations have successfully integrated AI while still maintaining the human and values elements technology cannot offer?
Fantastic question. And to just give you an idea of that's literally what I want to research about how people have done it. And you only get pockets of it. People would come and they would say, Moscow has just done a big service with us, so it put up lights, and AI will predict how long these globes will last, and if it goes out, there's already a signal that goes to them, and before I know there's a globe out, people or they will come and fix it. That's literally what they do. Now that's probably more use of technology, but predictive, it's already there. There's, however, not a single case study that I could really say. So there's people that say we've implemented this really well. We implemented the use of AI within our commercial space really well, but not collectively. And reasons being, I think some of these things are so new that case studies aren't reported yet. It will come, I can tell you now. So it seems to be used in pockets. It seems to be very used in athlete management. And performance management seems like AI is in that. We hear that AI is used to select national cricket teams. The balance then, and it's a great question, how do we still maintain human oversight? How do we human involvement? That is your fear when it goes over it. UNESCO, I think, within a 15 considerations or guidelines, probably look at it. It still refers to human oversight. So in my thinking, if I am able to develop, if you like, a AI judge or AI arbitrator, there still needs to be oversights. These case studies will definitely come, but my research for now, I'm sure there should be some case study somewhere, but when I had a quick look at it, there's a lot of examples where people use it, but it's either stadium related or it's on-field performance related, not necessarily an organization that would say, well, this is a case study where Titans Cricket, to just use an example, embraced it, and this is how they changed their lives. The one thing I am doing is I'm going to write down how much we use or brought in new technology. It's always a good guideline. You say, okay, guys, where have we moved? Where were we in 2025? What have we introduced in 2026? But I'm not aware of a case there. I'm sure if I do more research, there would be one. I didn't get one. If that answers the question, Ivanka.
Thank you, Job. The next question is from Yanni. She asks, how do you prevent the use of AI replacing human critical thinking?
Yeah, that's your danger, isn't it? The danger is almost that you won't you don't need critical thinking. I think Yanni is safe. Knowing Yanni, she's very smart and a very learned person. But that is the danger, that our critical thinking is not needed. It becomes obsolete. So would it get to the point where what should I list as an agenda to the executive committee meeting? I don't myself even come it up. It's a difficult question because my fear is that as technology becomes a convenient way of doing things quicker and replacing almost your human effort, I think people would migrate to that. That to me is the biggest fear. People will look at it and go like, well, I don't need to think about it. I can just prompt it. I don't, have to do it. Maybe example of, can we still calculate without calculation, without a calculator, sorry? And does a calculator influence it? I guess it does. It is a concern. It is a concern. Again, it's a leadership issue. It was very interesting because I went to a law seminar on AI, and they said that we're not keen for young lawyers or interns to use AI. So we need them to still do research, still understand the basis of law. That was a very good insight. And that's quite true. I don't know how you're going to stop people, if they can use ChatGPT to think on their behalf. I think people are always used to getting or used to taking a shortcut rather than anything else. But yeah, thanks for the question, Yanni. You safe though, Yanni. Knowing you'll be fine. Next one.
The next question is from Sumaya. She asks, what ethical frameworks do we need to ensure AI does not exploit athletes, especially the youth?
That's a great question. The first point we have to make is we need ethical guidelines. Otherwise, it would be. We know now that it gets used or technology gets used for evil as well. The only way you're going to regulate it is you need guidelines. As sports practitioners, that's something that we got to look at. It is something that we collectively got to look at. How can it be explored and how do we manage it? Those safeguarding and guidelines sometimes is problematic if you don't even understand how AI interfaces with athletes and how they do it. I guess a simple one, maybe a law-related one, is the use of IP. What can what can they generate in terms of that? I would encourage people to, and Sumaya also, a seasoned sports practitioner and seasoned leader. It is something that maybe I'm also involved with the Sports Law Association, but you need guidelines. And remember what I said, law catches up with technology. Technology arrives first. We're probably in that era now where we as sport leaders need to come up with these guidelines. I've got no doubt that there'll be a European influence. There will probably be American influence as well. Where are they on it? The UNESCO one is a very, very good example of the 15 points. It is quite vague, but the discussion on it is, if you have the guidelines in front of you, you will, the discussion is, I think it's about 44. I've actually got it in front of me now. So the use of AI systems in courts and tribunals, we need one for athletes and players. This is, of course, a lovely 44 pages, one, excuse me, very, very comprehensively written. And maybe just going to a page here, it says, AI tools are not substitute for qualified legal reasoning, human judgment, or tailored legal advice. So that is on one of the pages. So we need something probably for sport. I'm sure Europe's already got some of it, but we need to Africanize it as well. Thank you. I hope it helps, Sumaya. Thanks for the question.
The next question is from Keanu Moody. We have seen in NFL and NBA how AI startups are partnering with teams to predict injuries, load, etc. Whoop is a great example. Is there still space in South Africa for AI sport applications? How does the sporting industry encourage innovation?
Definitely. Look, we encourage innovation if it gives you, firstly, if it gives you an edge. So if it gives you a better chance to to win, then I can tell you the sport will look at it, especially the ones that's got capacity. The second one is very interesting because there is a duty of care. We know about the NFL cases or the case against concussion. So if it comes to duty of care, that plays a different role. Remember, your athlete or your player is still your most valuable asset. So injury prevention, return to play, AI, the use of that within the medical space. It's not necessarily isolated to the use in sport. And maybe Ash Ramji is more qualified to talk to it, but they're already into AI. If you come up with something, firstly, that'll give us an edge. So that's performance related. I will listen to you. My CFO might not listen to you, but I will definitely listen to you. If you come to me because I've got a duty of care and it can predict injury, return to play, and the use thereof, again, it's your assets that you're going to look. There's definitely space for this. It's also, if you set the trend, if it comes in, we would look at American technology. I can tell you that. We actually say to our strength and conditioning coaches, and we say to our physios that you got to look at technology. Just the other day, we thought that you could not scan somebody and do predictive analysis in terms of injury. So definitely a place for this. Contact sport, you can imagine that. Something like rugby and soccer, the application is even higher. In cricket, we play a tremendous amount of cricket. In recovery technology is going to be massive for us. If you overuse injury, if you can determine that, if AI can determine that, play a big role. I hope that answers the question. Next one, please.
That was all of the questions. Thank you, Prof. Chalkful.
Thank you. And I think I'm only 3 minutes over. Please join us with the, for the other seminars. We actually sometimes have experts that talk about the topic, not just me that talks from a leadership perspective. And then, we've got some nice seminars coming up. Please join us as please join the membership. I think there's a lot of benefit out of it. We've been going for 6 years, and the aim is still to help and stimulate leadership thinking within sport. We do need it. I think there's an underinvestment in our sports leaders. Like I say, I appreciate you joining us today. It was definitely from a perspective as a sports leader, or as a person that's tasked to lead a sporting organization. It is one of the focus areas that we're going to focus on this year as a cricket organization. It's scary for me as well. I must be honest, even my further studies, it's scary. I'll leave you with one thing today, and then just maybe my last note. Embrace it. Embrace it. There's always, like any other technologies, when cars were invented, one never hoped that there would be car accidents. But that is something that we realize. It's not like we would say that you cannot invent cars because there will be accidents and people would even die. Maybe there's a place for all of us. They say the optimist designed the aeroplane and the pessimist designed the parachute. So there is a debate for both, but you're not going to stop the use of AI. I think embrace it. If you in a leadership position, the Samaya question is so relevant, is how do we regulate it? Because as leaders, we got to provide that guidelines. We got to provide the safety nets for it. Exploration of athletes and players. I'm pretty much sure that evil part of it and AI and technology will play a role. So we need to safeguard and we need to regulate it, especially if you like within this period where law still and regulations still catching up with technology. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining me. Have a great week. Well, Ivanka, I hope my speaker wasn't muted because then I got to start all over again. But I'm happy to take any questions if there is any.
Thanks, Jock. You do have a question. You have two questions from Ariana. I'm going to read the first one.
Sure.
She asks, how can AI add value in our sporting industry? Is it apps that we need to purchase?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's probably where you got to start. I think that's going to be the attitude: is how do we benefit from it? In the AI, in the sporting industry, literally, when we looked at it, everything that can be automated. So invites, anything that is player or performance related, that we've seen already. I mean, your coaching aids, that's become AI now. So it can literally help on every level. I do think it goes further than just the app. That I got to be honest. It is the application of it, but it's got to come from somewhere. So it's probably software as well. Remember what it is, and I'm going to use a good example with Claude. So I mean, we've been recording meetings. I mean, that's it. And if I just reverse it, so Bridget would record the meeting and then type. Now it goes further. Claude records it, it types it, and then it also indicates to us steps that needs to be taken. It gives a summary. That's where the AI intelligence comes from. So definitely in sport, I think there would be huge applications in the coaching, medical science field, definitely. So I think, like I said, I'm not an expert, but it's definitely more than just